Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm Ryan, warmly joined, as always, by Scott Bogman and Pat Fitzmaurice. Fellas, we're back for another Superflex rookie mock draft. Last time in February, we did 2 rounds. Now that we are in March, we are going to expand that to 3 rounds. Eventually, we'll get to like 4 or 5 rounds when we get into April. For now, we're sticking with 3, trying to stay reasonable here, but we'll move a little faster than last time because we got some more names to go through. Fitz, how are you feeling kind of projecting out the early rounds of a rookie draft now as opposed to however you felt a month ago?
Yeah, it's a little better post-combine, Worm, feeling a little stronger about some of these takes. And just, I think for the most part at the combine, we saw a lot of our opinions validated, which was good. Just especially with this running back class, we thought it was a really good class, and the testing at the combine sort of reaffirmed that. Like, these guys tested, I think the average for the running backs for the 40 was like a 4.47 or something like that. I mean, this is a big, fast, athletic running back class. Super excited about that, and excited about some of the other guys at other positions too.
The events of the combine coincided with the early stages of my recovery from the shoulder surgery. So I can't wait to make a pick today and have you guys say, he ran like a 5.2 40 or something and start laughing at me with all the mistakes I made. So this
Maurice Claret is not in this class, so you're good.
This will be a good learning experience for me. Bogman, are there any guys that really stand out to you as real movers, either risers or fallers, since the last time we did a mock?
I mean, I think DJ Giddens probably rose the most post-combine, and I think just more people getting eyes on him because his running back class is so deep. We heard D-Bro kind of talking about him last week, and I got to be honest, like last week we sat down and made a top 10 list, and organizing the running backs is one of the hardest things that I've had to do this offseason to see where I would rank these guys right now before their teams and all that stuff, because I just felt like I was leaving so many good ones off. I was like, maybe Fitz should have told us top 20 running backs instead of top 10 here. This maybe that would have been better, but we had to settle at 10, and it felt, it was like passing a stone. I did not enjoy it.
The class, now that we're into March, and we'll dive in a second, but to me, it does feel like if you set aside the quarterbacks, where obviously we've talked a lot about that being a down year at that position, it does feel like there's a lot of depth pretty much everywhere else. The running backs get most of the headlines, but while there's maybe not a Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors type at receiver, I feel like there's a lot of names I'm like pretty interested in to see where they land. Tight end feels very deep. Running back, again, obviously we all know just how insane this class is. It feels like if you can look past the quarterback situation, and this is going to be a super flex rookie mock, but if you can look past the quarterback situation, Fitz, it feels like you're going to be making picks you like well into the 3rd round of your rookie drafts.
It does feel that way, Worm. And we saw some pretty impressive testing from some of the receivers too. The Iowa State guys immediately come to mind, Jaylen Noel and Jayden Higgins, and how well they performed. And now I think they've both solidified themselves as guys who are going to be top 10 wide receivers in these rookie drafts. So yeah, it is a pretty, like, the closer we get to when actual rookie drafts happen, the better I start to feel about this rookie class.
I feel like the spot I'm least interested in Bogman in drafting is kind of that like 2 to 4 range, because obviously everybody knows he's going to go 1, and then there's just so much depth late. But that like top half of the 1st round, but that's not going to get Ashton Jeanty, is the area where it feels like, well, maybe you're getting somebody weaker than you might have gotten last year, for example. But outside of that stretch of rookie drafts, it feels like you're going to be getting a pretty comparable, if not better, talent than usual in a lot of other spots in the draft. Let's get started here, because like I said, we got a lot of names to get through. We're going to change up the order from last time. We're going to have Fitz with the number 1 pick, Bogman number 2, myself 3rd. Then we'll kind of just repeat that pattern throughout. So Fitz is 1, 4, 7, etc. Bogman 2, 5, 8, so on and so forth. Fitz, start us off with not wasting any time. Everybody knows where we're going here.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty, Boise State running back. Even though he did not test at the combine, I do not think that hurt his stock at all from a fantasy perspective or a real life NFL draft perspective. Everyone knows Jeanty is the cream of a very appealing crop at running back. So Ashton Jeanty goes 101 in this mock.
I asked you this last time. We don't need to waste a lot of time on Jeanty because it's the clear pick here. What percentage of thought would you give to going somewhere else? Again, it is a super flex draft, so if you really need a quarterback, or is there zero thought to it? Jeanty, don't even hesitate.
It would be the same percentage as Bluto Blutarski's grade point average in Animal House 0.0.
That answers that. We were talking about some old movies before the show. That is one that I have seen. Came out in 1978, so well before I was born. Bogman, you're on the clock with the second pick.
Second pick, like you said, this is the area we don't like, Worm, 2 through 4, because you're not getting Jeanty, you're not getting that value. But I think with Shedeur maybe slipping on boards throughout the NFL, I think Cam Ward is just by far and away the only guaranteed quarterback to be playing this year. I think he needs to be the number 2 pick. So I will take Cam Ward just because the value of the other quarterbacks is very, very questionable. And I think that kind of moves him up a little bit. I do believe in him. He's my favorite quarterback in this draft as well. So I love the potential for him. And we know that QBs are a finite resource in the NFL, as my team is finding out in free agency right now. So Cam Ward has to be 2 to me.
Fitz, I know that you have had Shedeur ranked higher than Ward for the early stages of this process. A, do you still feel that way? And B, if you still feel that way, but Ward goes number 1 overall, will you, in terms of rookie draft capital, maybe give the slight edge to Ward?
I'm still going to have Shedeur ahead of Ward because even though I actually like Ward more from a fantasy perspective than a real life perspective, longevity, I think, is maybe the most important thing, and how long I see these guys being quarterbacks. Like, I do think Shedeur is going to be some team's long-term answer at the QB position. I don't know if I feel the same way about Ward. I worry about the Jameis Winston component of Cam Ward's game and how he is just this occasionally reckless gunslinger who is looking to rarely check it down and always wants to make the hero throws downfield. And that sometimes leads to him holding onto the ball way too long. So I worry about the catastrophe potential with Cam Ward, to be quite honest. And even if he goes number 1 overall, number 2 overall, I don't know if that's going to allay my fears.
I'm going to take Tetairoa McMillan with the third pick. This would have been my pick at 2. I would take him over either of the quarterback options. I'm just a huge fan of his. Still really curious to see where he winds up. Given that they haven't really added anybody else, I would be pretty happy if he went to New England, honestly, since they have kind of struck out on a lot of the other receivers so far in the early days of free agency. And I would love him pairing with Drake May. But I just love the player. Very easy pick for me here. If he hadn't gotten to me, I would have decided on one of the quarterbacks. I'm not sure who, but I'm very happy to go with McMillan here. So Pat, I don't think there's going to be any disagreement with that pick there. So I'll send it to you for the 4th pick.
Yeah, no disagreement here. That's perfectly reasonable. Although I think there are other options. You could have considered it at 103 and other people might consider in their own Superflex rookie drafts. I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders at 104, put my money where my mouth is. I love his accuracy and the way he places the ball in a way that minimizes chances of interceptions or of his receivers taking big hits. Had a high completion percentage in college, has that nice snappy release, good at making pre-snap reads, throws with anticipation, the sort of things that NFL teams are really going to appreciate. And although he was not really a running quarterback in college, it was for good reason. I mean, he's very mobile within the pocket. It's just that Shedeur likes to keep his eyes downfield, looking for that play in the passing game rather than just quickly tucking it away and running. So I do think Shedeur is going to be a good long-term starter for someone. And we'll take him at 104.
Bogman, you're not as high on Shedeur as you are on Ward, but would he be that pick for you at the 4 spot?
I think he has to be in consideration. I think when you're drafting in a rookie draft, you know what your team needs are. So if you need a quarterback and Shedeur lands in a spot where he's likely to see time this year, then I would do it. If he lands somewhere where it's pretty obvious that he's not going to be playing this year, I would probably skip him and take someone else and try to trade for a quarterback later. But I think that the way that QBs go off the board, there's always more than we expect, right? It's always Michael Penix out of nowhere from the top rope. Oh, Bo Nix is not worth it. to Denver here. There's no way they take him, and then they do. You know what I mean? So I do think he'll end up somewhere where he's probably going to play this year, and for that reason, he would probably be my pick there.
Let me ask you guys one thing real quickly, since you guys are maybe not as sold on Shedeur as I am. If Jaxson Dart were to go ahead of Shedeur Sanders in the draft, I don't think it happens, but the way I've heard some draft analysts talk about it, like it might not be totally outside the realm of possibility. Would you take Dart ahead of Shedeur Sanders in a dynasty rookie draft?
I think it depends on where. Like the landing spot would be really relevant for me in that scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to be somewhere with super high passing volume, and looks like Minnesota's going with McCarthy, so probably not. I would say most likely not.
If it's a Minnesota type place, though, place where you walk in and say, I really like the play caller, good offensive line, good weapons, like that would carry a lot of weight for me.
What if Dart goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Shedeur goes to like serve an apprenticeship behind Geno Smith in Las Vegas?
I would rather have Shedeur, because the mindset of Pittsburgh is the Arthur Smith run offense. So I'd rather have Shedeur.
I think I'd rather have Dart in that scenario, but I think it's close. I think it's a good question to pose. Bogman, you're up with the 5th pick.
I'm going to go with Omarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina. And at this point, I don't know. Jaxson Dart is possible, but we're not really sure where he's going to land at this point. So for me, I think Omarion Hampton is likely to end up in Pittsburgh. And what I just say about their offense, run. So I don't think Jaylen Warren is a guy that can handle volume carries. I think he would get hurt. He's a smaller frame guy. So I think you want the big bruiser to go with him. And I think Omarion Hampton would be that guy. So and it really doesn't matter where he ends up. He's that type of bruiser wherever he does end up. So he would be my pick here.
Love this pick. It's what I would have made if you got to 6. Fitz, I know you have been as big a Hampton fan as anybody.
Yeah, fantastic. And what we saw from him at the combine too, with a 40 time in the 4.4s, some other good test results, paired with what we have seen from Hampton on tape and the way he can catch the ball for a bigger back. Like he is primed to go somewhere and be an every down back. And we're just keeping our fingers crossed that he gets the right landing spot.
I'm pretty torn here, honestly. Truthfully, there are players at every single position that I would at least consider here right now. I think the top 5 is fairly set for most people, even if the order might be different depending on who you ask. I think I will buy into the idea of him going in the first round, and I will just go with the quarterback because it's Superflex. I kind of made this mistake last, and by the way, I mean Jaxson Dart with that pick. I kind of made this mistake last year where even after they were drafted where they were, I was not taking a lot in rookie drafts of Bo Nix or Michael Penix, because not that I was like stuck with my priors, but I just was not a really big believer in them as great dynasty fantasy assets. And I want to learn my lesson and say, in a super flex, if a guy is getting that kind of draft capital and an opportunity, and there's some degree of talent, which I do think there is, and I think there is definitely talent with Dart. I know Debro is a huge fan of his. I think it's smart. And there's so many other names I could have gone with. Literally receiver, running back, or tight end I would have also considered. But because it's super flex, I'm going to give that extra weight to the quarterback and kind of buy into the helium with Dart. Fitz, before you make your pick, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I do not know, Worm, what the NFL thinks of Jaxson Dart. I'm not. I know Debro is convinced that Jaxson Dart is going to be a first-round pick and probably a top 15 pick. I'm not sure I even totally buy into the first-round pick status for Jaxson Dart. So he's interesting for sure. I mean, he throws a gorgeous deep ball, and he will hit guys in absolute stride, drop it into a bucket. I like that about him. I like how he's an aggressive runner. Like not super elusive, but kind of runs like almost in a, maybe not as physically as Josh Allen, but just sort of an opportunistic guy who picks up yardage. What I worry about with Jaxson Dart, I didn't see him work through progressions that much when I watch him play in college, and like seemed like he was often reading just one half of the field. So he might have a lot of work to do as a passer just to get acclimated to what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL.
What do you think, Bogman, about Dart, just quickly? Because I think he's probably the last quarterback for a while.
I mean, I just think about like what are the potential landing spots for Dart, right? Like, if we just look at the board and the way it's laid out right now, what teams are looking for a quarterback? So I think Vegas, because Geno Smith is 100, I still think Vegas is in play for a quarterback here. I do think that Miami. I know they signed Zach Wilson. I don't know if he's a long-term plan for Tua. I think they might do the Michael Penix route. Seattle, well, they signed Darnold. Denver, Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield's old. Pittsburgh, obviously. So I do think there are some landing spots, and then you have the potential for teams to trade back into the first. From the second, just a couple spots moving up, just a different round. So, and that's actually probably the most likely scenario because you want if you're drafting a quarterback, you want the quarterback in the first round because it adds a year of contract onto their rookie deal. So I do think he's going to kind of sneak into the back end of the first round. I think maybe somebody trades up for him. So it all depends on landing spot for him and how long he's going to have to sit.
Well, and to be clear, if he's not drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, yeah, I mean, I would absolutely not be taking him here or anywhere close to here. That's going to be very black and white. If he's a first round pick, I'll be interested. If not, I absolutely will not. That's just what the NFL is telling us about these guys. Fitz, who you got at number 7?
TreVeyon Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, one of the running backs from Ohio State. Henderson shared work with Quinshon Judkins this past year. And in fact, TreVeyon Henderson never got more than 12 carries in any game for the Buckeyes this past season. So at this point, midpoint of the first round, this is when you're normally looking for running backs with 3-down potential. Henderson doesn't have that, but he could be used in a Jahmyr Gibbs sort of way as the lightning paired with some sort of bigger back. And this guy's just an explosive playmaker. Henderson is fast, quick feet. Just his acceleration is incredible, and he'll string moves together. He will actually, work his way through contact. He doesn't go down easily. He's 208 pounds, so not built to be a 3-down guy, but he's big enough, and this guy's just an electric playmaker.
By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. I think it sounds complicated. It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online fantasy front office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. Yeah, Fitz, Henderson would have been the running back for me if I made a running back pick there instead of going with Dart. So I like that one. Bogman, you're on the clock with pick number 8.
I'm going to go with Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State here. And the reason I'm taking him is because I feel like there's a glut of running backs that I like. TreVeyon Henderson is an excellent pick here. I have him at 6 among my running backs. So I think there's a lot of running backs to pick from. I don't think that there's a lot of elite level tight ends. And I think that the reason I have Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland, I do think that Fitz has brought up the point, and it's a great point to make, that he's a much older prospect than Colston Loveland. And Loveland is going to be a great fantasy tight end because he's primarily a slot. He's not doing too much inline blocking, and Tyler Warren does do that. But I think because Tyler Warren can inline block a little bit, I think he's going to see the field more in his first year. So I think that in terms of fantasy, Tyler Warren holds more value than Colston Loveland, and probably much more than a lot of the pack at tight end. So I'm just thinking a level of talent, what's on the board. There's a lot of wide receivers left kind of in the same group. So I'm going to go with the elite talent at the position, and I'll go with Tyler Warren here.
Fitz, how wide a gap do you see between Warren and Loveland?
Pretty minimal. I think it does matter that Loveland is 2 years younger than Warren, and I have a feeling that that's going to matter to NFL teams too. I'm very much looking for the betting options for the draft expanded on the online sports book, so I can get Colston Loveland to be the first tight end off the board at significantly plus money, I think, because I think there's a pretty decent chance that actually happens, even though Warren's terrific too. Nothing to knock that guy about, because he is a true warrior, but he didn't really break out until he was a fifth-year senior. I mean, he had a really nice...
Drew Aller wasn't good until he was a fifth-year senior, though,
Well,
either. So.
neither was Kenny Pickett, Boggs, and there's a reason I thought that was a mistake to draft him in the first round. So,
but it wasn't a mistake to draft Jordan Addison in the first round, his target. So I mean, Jordan Addison, Tyler Warren,
Addison was great as an underclassman.
He was good his whole college career.
Yes,
I understand that, but I'm just saying, I don't know. I think that is I think the talent is minimal, but I think for fantasy specifically, the first year impact, even if Loveland is drafted first, it would have to be to a very specific situation for him to see more snaps than Tyler Warren in his rookie season.
I am not that worried about Tyler Warren being an overaged prospect, and he did have a fine, like his fourth year, senior year was fine too. He had like 700 plus yards or whatever. Didn't go totally bonkers till he was a fifth-year senior, but seeing what that guy looks like on the field, like I'm not questioning whether he's going to fit in the NFL. He'll do just fine.
I'm up with pick 9. I am going to take Colston Loveland. I wasn't really intending for these guys to go back to back. Like it wasn't that I was going to take Loveland as soon as Warren went, but Bogman kind of alluded to, there's just so many other receivers and running backs that I'm going to be very happy with who are available at my next pick that I think are largely grouped together. Whereas there is a gap in my opinion after Loveland. So I'm happy to get kind of the second of what I believe is the two real elite tight end prospects here. And like Fitz mentioned, Loveland a bit younger than Warren, maybe a chance he goes higher than him. I love the receiving ability, even if we didn't always see it at Michigan. I'm very in on Loveland, so I'll happily make that pick here at 9 and send it to Fitz for pick number 10.
Yeah, 10, I'll take Kaleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa, and I've kind of gone back and forth between who I prefer of Kaleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins. I still have Johnson ranked higher, but it's kind of a coin flip for me. He's just a powerful downhill runner. Obvious goal line potential. I think he could be a double-digit touchdown guy at some point early in his career. Good contact balance, really hard to bring down if you hit him high. But 1 year of college production, like premier college production, he was kind of a committee back until his third and final college season, and then he went nuts. 1,500 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns. But get Kaleb Johnson in a zone scheme in the NFL, and I think he's going to be terrific right from the get-go because he is worthy of a top 5 spot in a terrific running back class.
Bogman, I think you said that Henderson was your RB6. Where is Kaleb Johnson for you?
He's 5, and I think 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, any way you want to order these guys, the way that I have them is fine by me. So I'm a big fan of all of them. I think landing spot is going to separate them the most. But I think in terms of talent, this is why this class is so deep, is there's so many good options. And Kaleb Johnson, like I've seen him mocked a lot to Minnesota in the second round. I think that would be such a good pick. I think he would fit there because he wouldn't have to, maybe they would have to run a little bit more because of McCarthy. Aaron Jones is aging. He wouldn't have the big wear and tear taken off of him his rookie year, and then he can proceed to lead this backfield after Aaron Jones goes. So, I there are many good landing spots for Kaleb Johnson.
Yeah, I even Hampton to a degree, like landing spot's going to be like Jeanty's the only one where landing spot isn't going to alter how I view them in terms of as a dynasty asset. I do agree that Hampton is kind of the clear RB2 in my opinion, but even for him, I think landing spot will matter, and it's going to matter for all the guys after Jeanty for sure. It looks like you're about to go with a different running back here, Bogman.
Yeah, I'm going to go Cam Skattebo. I know, D-Bro and I kind of argued about him on the show last week, but this is me planting my flag, man. I am a Skattebo fan. And I think he's kind of been doubted. He started at the FCS level and he was great there, came up at ASU, had his first year there, was just kind of middle of the road. The coaches got on him and they said, hey, look, you're a great running back, but you're not in NFL level shape. You need to be in NFL level shape if you want NFL teams to take you seriously. And that vaulted his game to just a different level. He went from, 163, I believe it was 164 attempts, 763 yards to 293 and 1711 this year. He went from 9 touchdowns to 21. He had 45 catches for 605 yards and 3 scores this season. So he's a bell cow type back. I know he didn't run. People were upset about that. I do not care. I put a little too much stock into these 40 times for running back sometimes. So I just don't care that he didn't run. I saw him against Texas, who is going to have 50% of their starting defense drafted to the NFL and torch them. So I think Cam Skattebo is the real deal. And I think no matter where he lands, he's going to be probably the lead back by year 2. So let's go with Cam Skattebo here as a first rounder.
I'm going to wrap up the first round with another running back. I'm going to take Judkins, who I've just been a very big fan of since he was a freshman at Ole Miss. I just think he's going to be a good, very capable running back for a while. And we just talked about for all these guys, like landing spot is going to matter for sure. Part of the reason I'm taking him is because there are so many receivers still available. So I don't feel the need to kind of jump in and grab one. It's really remarkable to me that we are through the first round and one receiver went off the board. It was just McMillan. There were multiple occasions where I considered any of kind of this next trio of receivers that I assume is pretty much going to go at the top of the board. And I can see you guys already typing your names. I would have imagined the next 3 picks are all receivers, and they will be. But does that surprise you, Fitz, before we get into your pick to start the second round, that we can get through a whole first round with just one receiver taken?
It does not, because we do have 2 pretty extraordinarily talented tight ends, and we've got 5 running backs worthy of first round selection. Plus, we're going to get at least 2 quarterbacks going in Superflex drafts the first round. And of course, if Jaxson Dart does go in the first round of the NFL draft, he will be a first round pick in Superflex drafts. So really doesn't surprise me. And man, it leaves a ton of value at wide receiver at the top of the second round.
For sure. I just want to quickly remind everybody about our Dynasty Rookie Draft Simulator. It lets you complete a mock in minutes with no waiting between picks. You can customize your league settings to match your league's exact format. Premium subscribers can test trade scenarios by mocking with their traded draft picks. Prepare for rookie drafts and Dynasty startup drafts in one place. Use the Dynasty Rookie Draft Simulator to dominate your rookie draft today at fantasypros.com/simulator. Quick recap of round 1 before we dive into round 2. Going in order from 1 to 12, Ashton Jeanty, Cam Ward, Tetairoa McMillan, Shedeur Sanders, Omarion Hampton, Jaxson Dart, TreVeyon Henderson. Sorry, I lost my spot. I'm using my left hand here on the mouse. TreVeyon Henderson, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Kaleb Johnson, Cam Skattebo, and Quinshon Judkins. Fitz, get us started on this wide receiver run here at the top of round 2.
Yeah, I talked about the value here, and I'm going to tap into it at wide receiver with Matthew Golden. Obviously opened eyes with his 4.3 40 time at the combine. Boggs knows about him as a Longhorns fan. Big time speed, sure-handed, pretty good as a route runner too. It's not like it's empty speed a la Philip Dorsett. Like, this dude can actually run routes and get open. Seems to have a really good feel for working the sideline and doesn't mind going over the middle, even though he's only 195 pounds. So Matthew Golden, I think, is going to be the second receiver off the board in the NFL draft. And I've heard some people speculate that it would not be a shock if Golden went ahead of Tetairoa McMillan.
I've started to see that in a couple of places from some of the draft experts, and that feels like it's too much helium in my opinion, but it's very clear that the stock is very much up for Golden right now. Bogman, so we are going wide receiver here. 1, 2, 3 at the top of round 2. Would Golden have been the first choice for you here, or would it have been the guy you're going with?
No, it would have been the guy I'm going with, surprisingly, because I am a Texas fan, but I am not surprised by we talked about Kenny Pickett being drafted because Jordan Addison got him there. I don't know if you guys remember this prospect, because I was big on him coming into the process. Donovan Smith from Houston looked so good last year. Well, he had Matthew Golden. He was throwing the ball to Matthew Golden. He got benched this year at Houston. He is not going to get drafted. He got benched, and then Matthew Golden looked amazing with Texas. So I think maybe a little bit of that was happening in Houston as well. So yeah, Matthew Golden opened up a lot of eyes, including mine. I mean, his performance in the playoff was so great. He was great in the regular season as well. And they had to switch quarterbacks a couple times. Quinn Ewers was hurt. They went to Arch. They went back to Quinn. So, he was just consistent the whole year, boosted himself up in the playoffs and then even more at the combine. So not surprised by the helium that we're seeing from him.
Bogman, let's stick with you for your pick at 202.
I'm going to go with Luther Burden III, the wide receiver from Missouri. Had a couple injuries this season, was much better last season, but also his quarterback, Brady Cook, who is opening some eyes right now, specifically from the combine. Only guy, I think he had the highest RAS score of any QB at the combine. And he got hurt too. So he took a little bit of a dip this season. I think that he's losing a little steam in value now because Matthew Golden is rising. Some of these other wide receiver prospects are rising as well. So I do think that he's taking a dip. He used to go firmly in the top 15 picks and mocks. Now he's slipping to late in the first. I've even seen some second round grades on Luther Burden as well. I think that's a little bit overblown. Big time prospect coming out, one of the highest prospects ever to go to Missouri. I think that he is a great wide receiver, and I'm not going to take a down year with an injury and a hurt quarterback to lower his value. So he's still my number 2.
I knew that 2 of these 3 guys were going to go at 201 and 202, and I was just going to happily take whoever was third. Emeka Egbuka, very happy to get it 203. I think that's a great value. I think he's going to be a really good NFL receiver for a long time. One of these, obviously Ohio State guys, which is always a nice pool to be picking from. Fitz, just quickly on that order, Golden, then Burden, then Egbuka. Does that seem right to you? Or would you have maybe switched up Burden and Egbuka?
I mean, I have Golden, Egbuka, and Burden. Now, I've dropped Burden simply because in the mock drafts of a lot of people who do this for a living, Daniel Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, in their most recent mock drafts, Burden is not in the first round. So they see him as a second round pick. But Burden is absolutely electric. Had kind of a rough year, had fewer receiving yards than Theo Weiss, his fellow wide receiver. So that's worrisome. But then again, Boggs mentioned it, Brady Cook missed some time with injuries. I remember early in the game against Texas A&M, Burden had this great, just toasted his man for an 80-yard touchdown. And no one near him. And it got called back on one of the most dubious holding penalties you'll ever see. It was just kind of some bad luck for Luther Burden this year. That guy's absolutely electric with the ball. And I think Egbuka is the safest of these guys. He's going to step right in and be an NFL ready slot receiver, high floor, but probably does not have 1,200 yard upside.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Fitz. You're on the clock with 204. It feels like maybe a tier gap here. I'm not saying it's a super wide one. To me personally, it feels like Egbuka was the very clear last of a group of guys that I was really excited about, and there's a bit of a gap here. Do you see it that way too?
I do think there's a little bit of a gap here. That was terrific value. And now even though I like the guy I'm going to take here at 204, to get Egbuka 3 picks into the second round is just insane. A guy who's that can't miss. So yeah, here at 204, I'm going to take RJ Harvey. He's slightly undersized and he's slightly overaged, but he tested like a champ at the combine. Not only his 40, but his jumps. And this guy is just such a baller. The quickness and the moves this guy has in his arsenal, and apparently is just a great kid and a team leader and a high academic achiever. Just really fun to, even if you just not so much watch the film, but watch the highlights, look up the highlights of RJ Harvey on YouTube to see just what this guy can do. Because his quickness and lateral agility are absolutely NFL caliber. His jump cuts are just amazing. Really good vision. I like this dude a lot. And the combine performance sort of validated the enthusiasm, I think.
Bogman, you are on the clock with the 205.
I'm going to go with Jayden Higgins, a wide receiver out of Iowa State here. 6'4", ran a 4.47, has the highest hands grade of any of the wide receivers from PFF last season that we have drafted so far. I believe he has the highest route grade as well. He had more first downs than anybody. He has an over 50% contested catch rate. Catch radius is huge. Tons of catches as well for him. He had well over 100 targets this year, 129 targets, which is second most behind Tet of anybody. 87 catches would be the most of any wide receiver that we've drafted so far as well. A dot is well over 10. It's at 12.1. I just don't see the downside to this guy. He's got size. He's got speed. He is proven. His hands are great. He can make a contested catch. I don't know where the downside is for Jayden Higgins. I think he's an outstanding wide receiver. There are a lot that you could pick here that are very good value, but Higgins to me is the best. So I will go with Jayden Higgins.
I love Higgins. He would have been my pick if he went one more spot, getting back to me. I would have happily taken him. I think he's awesome. Brett Coleman tweeted earlier today, I saw this, that he had the third most incompletions due to bad throws from the quarterback this season. And he still had 87 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Like, I just think he's really good. I really like Higgins a lot. And I think he's a great pick in the middle of the second round of your rookie drafts. I'm going to go with Dylan Sampson. He is easily my favorite running back on the board. Really young guy, obviously crazy productive at Tennessee this season, almost 1,500 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns. Again, just young, athletic, talented player, productive. That's an archetype I'm very interested in buying in on at the running back position. And there are other running backs I like, but he was like pretty clearly stood alone as the last guy remaining that I liked as much as I do. Like I said, I would have gone Higgins if he had gotten to me, but I'm very happy to get Sampson as well. I think those are two really good picks in the middle of the round. I do want to remind everybody before we wrap up with the second half of the second round to join our Fantasy Pros Discord community. You can chat with other fans and get access to exclusive AMAs that wind up on our podcast feed. Our current schedule looks like this. Myself and Fitz at 5 Eastern on the first Tuesday of each month, and Fitz and Boggs at 5 Eastern on the third Tuesday of each month. Come get your questions answered and be on the show at fantasypros.com/chat. Fitz, I want to get your opinion quickly on both Higgins and Sampson before we get to your pick at 207.
Elic Ayomanor, the wide receiver from Stanford. There are a lot of good big receivers in this draft. Ayomanor's not quite as big as Jayden Higgins. Higgins 6'4", Ayomanor 6'2", but Ayomanor does play big. He's got a big catch radius, and he is really, really hard to tackle once this dude gets the ball in his hands. He is a load to try to bring down. He in 2023 had 13 catches for 294 yards and 3 touchdowns against Colorado, with the majority of those catches coming against Travis Hunter. Yes, he made Travis Hunter look silly in that game. So if you can do that, you must be pretty good. I think Ayomanor is going to be a good NFL wide receiver.
We'll just go ahead and ignore the fact that Fitz ignored my question, getting his opinion on Higgins and Sampson and jumping right into his pick at 207. I'm sure he'll blame some technical difficulties in his connection there.
I think he was just ignoring you.
Well, yeah, it probably was. We'll skip right past that, though.
Totally ignoring.
Bogman, 208, who you got?
Real quick, I'll talk about Dylan Sampson. Yeah. I'm a little low on Dylan Sampson, and it's not that I don't like him. I do think he's a very good prospect. There are so many running backs to like in this class. I put him a little bit behind a few of the other guys. He wasn't in my top 10.
I was excited to hear what Fitz thought, because according to our current rookie rankings on the site, fantasypros.com/rankings, and from there you can kind of navigate to our expert rookie rankings. He's much higher on Sampson than both Debro and Erickson are. So I was looking forward to Fitz telling me what a great pick I made.
Yes,
but
if it's too busy ignoring you.
That was due to a technical glitch. I did not hear the question, Worm. But yeah, he is very fun because he is just so quick, man. Like, he is an explosive dude. And I do worry a little bit about the Tennessee guys, because you never know coming out of that weird Josh Heupel system how they're going to translate. But Sampson is just, I think he's like a slightly lesser version of TreVeyon Henderson, maybe. Just one of those guys who is just bottled lightning, man. And I'm I'm anxious to get my hands on him in some of my rookie drafts. He will be, I will have multiple shares of him, I suspect, coming out of my Dynasty rookie drafts.
All right, we got the support for the pick that I wanted. Bogman, go ahead with your pick.
Yeah, it's going to be DJ Giddens, running back from K-State here, who I mentioned as a riser a little bit earlier. And I mean, look, this guy at Kansas State, extremely productive, right? Just 2 years in a row, over 1,200 yards. He had 1,344 yards, 17 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, 29 catches last year, 21 catches this year. So we know he can catch the ball. He can do a little bit of everything. Just a very, very good player. Ran a 4.43 in the 40 at over 6 feet tall, a big back who can run some guys over as well and has a little wiggle to make some moves. So I just think DJ Giddens is a guy that's going to land up in a spot maybe we won't appreciate, and he can enjoy. He's a guy that might slip in the draft, and I'm going to be snapping him up everywhere because this is a dude that can handle a full workload. We know it. He has the size for it. He has the speed for it. So I am really excited to see where DJ Giddens ends up.
I like Giddens. He absolutely destroyed me in a matchup one time in a Campus to Canton league I'm in, and I have been a fan of his ever since. Since that, or I guess I kind of hated him in the moment. But I know I think it's a good pick at 208. Like you said, he is a riser. Jaylen Noel is my pick at 209. Somebody that Debro, obviously our colleague, loves. He has him as a first-round pick in rookie drafts. He has him as his 12th player amongst rookies right now. That could change. It's still early, but he's very high on Noel and has been for a couple of weeks now. I like the player too. So I'm happy to take him here on the back half of the second round and send it back over to Fitz for the 210.
Devin Neal, running back from Kansas. Testing was a little bit of a disappointment. One of the rare running backs who didn't test as well as I think people were hoping at the combine. But man, just seeing is believing with this guy. Like, his lateral agility is excellent. He is a dangerous cutback runner. Can stop on a dime and quickly reaccelerates. Good vision and patience, knows how to let plays develop. I think Devin Neal is going to be a good NFL running back, even if he is not a workout warrior.
Bogman 211.
Yeah, I mean, this is still a super flex draft, right? I mean, this is how bad the quarterbacks are in this class, that this is a super flex draft, and we've been busy taking the running backs. It also shows how good the running backs and wide receivers in this class are, really, more than how bad the QB class is. But I'm going to go with Jalen Milroe because I still think that he has the most upside of any QB in this class. Now, I think he has the most downside too. He could end up in a different position after a couple years, on the practice squad or whatever, if that were to happen. But he has all the athletic ability to do every single thing on the field. And as Fitz mentioned last week, we've seen him put together some good throws and some good progressions and everything. But we've also seen a lot of horrible mistakes from him. So honestly, it's just about, getting the reps, getting practice, and getting some time to work the things out mechanically, to work the processing and all of that stuff, because this dude had 20 rushing touchdowns this year. He is an insane athlete with 726 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns. He had 12 the year before. And remember, in college, that 720 also encapsulates negatives for sack yards. So this is a guy that could easily rush for 1,000 yards. He has an enormous arm. So it's just a little bit of seasoning that I feel like he needs. He has so much upside that when we're at this point where there's kind of a lot of wide receivers that are the same, we have, we're on the lower group of running backs now, guys that are not going to make an immediate impact on your team, most likely, and they're not going to be put in the starting lineup every single week, most likely. I'm going to take the upside, and the most upside I see left on the board is Jalen Milroe.
I don't feel like I'm that interested in Milroe at this point. Fitz, I'm really curious what you think about him.
Risk reward. The raw tools and just what he can do as a runner, really impressive to me. And in some ways, like, I'd much rather get Jalen Milroe here at the end of the second round than take Jaxson Dart in the first. For one thing, I mean, Jaxson Dart didn't necessarily play that well against some of the tougher teams he faced in college, the Alabamas, the Georgias, whereas Boggs, didn't Jalen Milroe light up Georgia for like 370 some passing yards and over 100 rushing yards this past
Yeah,
fall.
and a lot of that was in the first half, and then he had the big throw to Ryan Williams there. So yeah, he's put together some incredible games.
Yeah, I mean, the Wisconsin defense was okay, and he just completely wrecked us this past fall. Like, yeah, I know there's some work as a passer to be done, and he's kind of maybe not unlike an Anthony Richardson type developmental quarterback at that point, but like Jalen Milroe is going to be a day 2 pick, and Anthony Richardson was an early first round pick. So big difference there. I think the risk reward at this point, late second in the Superflex rookie draft, makes sense to me too.
I'm going to go with Jack Besh to round out the second round. PFF has him as the 38th overall player. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's wide receiver 7. That's if you're including Travis Hunter, which he's, we expecting as a cornerback mostly. So, they're very high on him. Obviously a huge winner at the Senior Bowl. A player that is, I've said this for a lot of guys. I think he's going to be a good NFL receiver for a nice long while here.
Super high floor. Super high floor for Jack Besh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Quick recap of round 2. Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, RJ Harvey, Jayden Higgins, Dylan Sampson, Elic Ayomanor, DJ Giddens, Jalen Noel, Devin Neal, Jalen Milroe, and Jack Besh. Let's go to the 301 with you, Fitz.
Amazing how much talent is still available into the third round as we start up. I'm going to go with a running back who I think there would be more enthusiasm for if we did not have a running back class of this caliber. It's Damien Martinez of the Miami Hurricanes. Just turned 21 a couple of months ago. Nearly 1,000 rushing yards as a freshman at Oregon State. Over 1,100 yards. His second year at Oregon State, transferred to Miami. And had over 1,000 yards this past year, over 6 yards per carry all 3 years in college. Surprising speed and lateral agility for a bigger back. Damien Martinez goes about 230. And just good vision. Like this dude runs a little like a scat back, but he's 232 pounds. Like I don't know if he has the power you would expect for a back of that size, but he can be pretty hard to bring down. And this dude is shifty for a bigger back. So I'm intrigued by where he goes in the draft, like what round he goes to. And I think he could absolutely be a contributor to a team's running game right from the jump.
Bogman, you're up with the 302.
Yeah, by the way, I think Damien Martinez would fit as like a perfect hammer to Bucky Irving as the Lightning in Tampa Bay. I think that would be a nice fit there as the big guy. I'm going to go with Tre Harris, and this has kind of made me rethink actually how I would draft because I have another wide receiver ahead of him. I want to see if he slips a little bit. Maybe I can get him in the next round, but or in the next pick. But Tre Harris, I think, is super underrated. I think he's been banged up a little bit. I think that's part of it. But Fitz mentioned this last week, just and I think he's number 2 on D-Bro's board at wide receiver, by the way.
He's not just number 2 receiver. He's 3rd overall.
Yeah. And that's where I was with Tre Harris coming into this year. Now, he was banged up a little bit, which is really the issue. I think, big scouting trope, what they say is availability is the best ability. He's been banged up in his career a little bit. So that is a problem. But when he's on the field, this is Jaxson Dart's go-to guy, and he makes Jaxson Dart look good, and Jaxson Dart makes him look good by being able to put the ball on him when he gets open that deep. But he has great releases. His routes are clean, and he has great hands, and he can track the ball, especially deep, and make an acrobatic catch. The catch radius is enormous. So I'm a big fan of Tre Harris. It's just, being a little bit nicked up, it feels like every week for him. Going into every game questionable can get annoying. So I'm a big fan of Tre Harris.
Tre Harris would have been my pick here, almost entirely on the back of D-Bro being as into him as he is. Like that carries for him to plant his flag as emphatically as he is. That carries a lot of weight for me. With my next pick, I'm going to go to the running back position. And this is somebody who, again, I didn't get to watch because of the surgery. So I read a lot about how great he did at the combine. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce the name of the Virginia Tech running back. Fitz, is it Bhayshul Tuten? How do you pronounce it?
Bhayshul Tuten.
Tuten, okay.
Not Tuten.
I didn't want to like just say it confidently and be totally wrong. So that's why I set it up for you to help me out there. But obviously, like a big combine winner, just very athletic, a guy who can, run away from defenders. And in the third round, I mean, again, we talked about like there's so much talent here that I'm just taking guys who have like kind of an elite skill, and we'll see where they wind up in the actual draft. That'll be my pick here at 303. Fitz, onto you for the 304.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think Tuten is making it out of the second round in most drafts, so that was a nice bit of value, I think, for him. Yeah. So like I can't argue with that one at all. I didn't want to double count him because like when I watched him, the speed was obviously what stood out. And there are other components to his game too, but I didn't want to double count his speed as an attribute after he went in and lit it up at the combine. But yeah, he's an exciting player.
You are Fitz a good degree lower than both Erickson and Debro on him in the overall rookie rankings. They both have him in the teens, and right now, as of the most recent update, it looks like you've got him in the low 30s. So you are a little lower than they are.
Yeah, I mean, I know they both have him as RB6, and I think I have him at RB12, but I like about 14 or 15 running backs in this class.
Yeah.
Like it seems like RB12 is a diss, but it's not. I like that many back.
And any running back going around 3 is a value, I feel like.
Yeah,
I mean, just because they're still so good.
Yes. I'd rather have DJ Giddens, but I have Giddens 10, and I love Giddens. So, yeah, it's really hard to, just get all these guys their proper due in rookie drafts almost. So there is going to be sliding value. And in this case, I think you got some there with Bhayshul Tuten Worm. So I'm going to take Jalen Royals at 304. Wide receiver from Utah State. I wish this guy had gotten in his full 2024 season. Injuries limited him to 7 games, but in those 7 games, 55 catches for 834 yards and 6 touchdowns. Physical receiver, 6'0", 205, really good after the catch, quick feet, hard to tackle because he's so powerful, and has some really good hands too and makes some acrobatic catches, good speed and acceleration. Like this guy's a pretty well-rounded wide receiver. I think he's going to be a sneaky value in the NFL draft.
Bogman, it looks like you're about to take another receiver. Would you have gone with this guy, or would you have gone with Royals if he was there?
I would have gone with this guy, and it's Isaiah Bond from Texas. And from Texas through Alabama, the talent is through the roof on this guy. Got a little shade at the combine, which was surprising, as everyone called him a loser because he didn't break Xavier Worthy's 40 time. Well, that was a ridiculous thing for him to say anyway. He didn't even run as fast as his teammate, Matthew Golden, but he still ran a 4.4, which is still blazing. And he had the highest miles per hour, I believe, of any wide receiver running through that gauntlet drill as well. I think it got up to like 23 miles per hour. So still insanely fast. He really reminds me kind of all the way through of Deontay Johnson, just in terms of the weight, his body control is, the quickness. He probably faster, Deontay Johnson, and hopefully not as terrible of an attitude. I do, obviously, with the things that he said about breaking the 40, he is confident. We know that. I've also heard rumors that he wasn't a good fit in the locker room at Alabama, wasn't too great of a fit in the locker room in Texas either. So there may be an attitude issue here that drops him a little bit in the draft. But in terms of talent, I think it's still very, very high for Isaiah Bond. So I will have him here. And this was the one I was talking about because I had him one spot ahead of Tre Harris in my rankings. I think when push came to shove, I took Tre Harris. So I'm going to have to move Harris up a spot.
So before I make this pick, have we seen any kind of news items that I just missed about Travis Hunter, like definitively not playing receiver? Because it feels like middle of the third round of a rookie draft is time to stop playing Travis Hunter chicken. Am I missing something here or
no?
Okay.
No, it's just it depends on where he lands and how limited the wide receiver package is.
And that's,
but also it could just be he's a wide receiver.
Yeah, like that.
And if that's the case, he's wide receiver 1.
Exactly. Like my point isn't that I'm sure Hunter is going to play a ton of snaps at the position. My point is this is way too late for the single most talented player in the draft who could end up playing real snaps at the position. I've been kind of leaning toward the idea that he won't, and it will be pretty severely limited, but middle of the third round, I know there's talent on the board. I can't keep playing chicken with that. Like the talent is too apparent in the middle, at the 306 in a rookie draft. Travis Hunter, the Heisman winner, come on. Like I'll take that risk any day if we're talking risk reward, guys.
Yeah, I get it. And he would be my wide receiver one if he were going to be a full-time wide receiver without question. But chances are it's going to be more like the Charles Woodson model that we saw when he was the Heisman Trophy winner coming out of Michigan, primarily used and like Charles Woodson never got any significant time at wide receiver in the NFL, even
Do
though
you think it should be Fitz, or do you think that let's just let the kid try to do it at this level? Why not? Especially if he's, on a team that's clearly not making the playoffs. Let him run himself ragged and see if he can do it. Because if he can, you got to keep him there. But if he can't do it, he can't do it. And at least
I just wonder if that would shorten his NFL life expectancy, Boggs. So
Okay.
most likely some smart team is probably going to play him full-time at cornerback, give him a 20 to 25% snap share at wide receiver. And at that point, like, what is his value to you as a fantasy player? Not much. That's the risk here. But I agree. This is the point in the draft to do it. And if you get lucky, Worm, if he goes to a team like the Browns that has said they see him foremost as a wide receiver, I think they're the only team that has said that. If he goes to the Browns, and he very well could 102, I mean, you have just rolled Yahtzee in your rookie Superflex
It completely changes your dynasty roster outlook if
Yep.
you are getting a guy like that in the middle of the third round. It's funny. We obviously aren't drafting as if these are guys like for the same fantasy manager, but at this pick, the 106, 206, 306, Jaxson Dart, Dylan Sampson, Travis Hunter, some real upside there. If those happen to pan out. And yeah, like, what am I going to do? Draft Quinn Ewers here instead? No, like, that was intentional. All right, so Hunter is the pick at 306. Fitz, you're on the clock for 307.
All right, time to tap into the second tier of tight ends with Harold Fannin Jr., the guy who had 117 catches for, I believe, 1,555 yards last year. Granted, it was in the MAC conference, and granted, Fannin is not a big dude. The tight end from Bowling Green is not going to be a 3-down tight end. He's going to be a move tight end. But even if he is only playing 50%, 60% snap shares because of that, I think Fannin is enough of a weapon as a pass catcher that he's going to be worthwhile in fantasy.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. A guy who was a lot higher prior to some of this early, draft season testing and Senior Bowl was a struggle and all that stuff. Like, was a guy that was considered like as a top half of the second round, maybe type of talent, like not too far behind Warren and Loveland just based on the production. So getting him in the third round could end up being a really good value as well here. I think, Bogman, you're up with the 308.
I'm going to go with Quinn Ewers. And I had that pick before Worm said it because he's trying to throw me under the bus here. But listen, I think that the quarterback class is limited here. I do think there are a lot of guys that are kind of in the same box, the same tier, however you want to say it, at quarterback in this position. I think if you wanted to go with Will Howard or, Dylan Gabriel or Kyle McCord, I know Tyler Shough has got some, helium late in the process as well. But I think Quinn Ewers is like a poor man's Ben Roethlisberger, right? Like, he's not as big as Big Ben. He doesn't have the arm strength, but he moves a lot. They play in a similar style, I feel like. And I think his ceiling is way more capped than Ben's, but I do think that he could be a better pro. And there are many, many QB needy teams, and every backup quarterback is one hit away from being a starter. So I think in a super flex with the talent on the board, there's still so much left at running back. I know if this was 4 or 5 rounds, I could get a good running back. If it was only 3 rounds, there's going to be good running backs on the wire. So at this point, I'll take the quarterback I think has the most upside, and that's Quinn Ewers.
I'll take Elijah Arroyo, consensus top 4 tight end in the class. PFF, I think, has him third. Yeah, they do. They've got him as a top 60 overall player. Fitz, if you burn me here, I will walk off this show. Okay, thank you. I can see what you put in the page here. You're up with the 310.
Yeah. So Worm, the Elijah Arroyo pick, nice. I mean, if you can get the guy who was fourth or fifth in receiving yards for the Miami Hurricanes, you have to do it. But I'll take the guy who was number one, Xavier Restrepo, ready-made NFL slot receiver. I think he's kind of a discount Lad McConkey, high floor player, and he's been kind of slipping, I've noticed, in rookie mocks I've seen. But I love getting Restrepo in the back half of the third.
I considered Restrepo. There's another wide receiver that I want instead here that I'm gonna be really upset if he doesn't get to me at 312. Bogman, you're up at 311.
I'm going to take Tai Felton. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Don't even joke.
It's a joke. I'm going to take Tahj Brooks, the running back from Texas Tech. Another big, monstrous, lots of carries type of running back. I think Tahj Brooks is going to be a steal, not only in the NFL draft, but in your rookie drafts as well. This is a guy that can get drafted to a team that has a lot of running backs and just kind of, earn his way up the board. I think that's exactly what he's going to have to do because he's going to be, most likely a day 3 pick. I think there's too many good running backs for him to go day 2, specifically with the way the NFL looks at running backs. That is changing a little bit after what Derrick Henry did in Baltimore and obviously what Saquon did with the Super Bowl champs. But I don't think it's going to be enough to push 20 running backs into the first 2 days, but we'll see. Tahj Brooks is a workhorse type of guy, outstanding runner, and his times were good for his size at the combine as well. So I'm a big fan of Brooks.
Just real quick, Bugs, do you like him significantly more than some of the other bigger backs in this class, like Ollie Gordon and Rocket Sanders?
I like him more than, Ollie Gordon was so good. I just wonder if he can get there. But I actually like, there's some of the undersized guys I like in this range too. Jaden Blue, I think is going to be underrated. Marcus Yarns, I know that he is a very big, Debro's a very big guy on him. Brashard Smith, converted wide receiver. Jarquez Hunter is a good running back too. And Kyle Manon guy who we mentioned.
We've got a coworker here. He's on the dev side. Shouts to Josh, who is an Auburn fan, was telling me about Hunter.
He's good, man.
On the team trip.
He's good.
He was really excited about him.
Because their offense was terrible. Everybody knew Jarquez Hunter was coming, and he still put up yards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a good one, too.
Final pick of our 3-round mock. I will be taking Tai Felton. Thank you guys for being polite and letting me have my guy here. I joked about it when we were doing the 2-round draft last month. Not a joke this time. I'll be very happy to get him late 3rd round in rookie drafts. I mean, Fitz, we've talked a lot about Felton. Just great ball tracker, plays bigger than his size, tough guy, and was playing in an offense that was not conducive to production and was still highly productive this past season. I've said it every time. I just think he's a good player. Like, I think he's going to be a capable NFL receiver for a while, late 3rd round. Very happy to get him and wrap this up with Terp. Before we get out of here, just quickly, Bogman, any kind of overall thoughts going through the extra round here this time?
I wish we still have decent quarterbacks on the board. How close were you taking Tyler Shough, Fitzy? I know you like him.
Yeah.
Older guy though.
Yeah. For me, I've got Milroe 4, and after Milroe, I'm not really looking to take any of the other quarterbacks until like the 4th round. But I would take Shough probably. He would have been in play for me at 401.
Okay. Yeah, because we still have Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel. I mean, these guys won at the collegiate level. I know their skill level seems less than, but somebody's going to pan out of this group. And there's, not a lot of talent at the QB position in the NFL today. So I think maybe these guys are being a little bit undervalued, but I don't think you can take them above some of this guaranteed talent at running back. And, we talk about how this wide receiver class isn't what it was last year, but the middle and the end is still really good of the wide receivers. So, like I was where you took Arroyo, I think you got so many deals in this one, Worm. I think Arroyo was a great deal where you got him, and Tuten was a great deal where you got him. So, there's, I think there's a lot of talent in this class, even though it may not be the most exciting class that we've seen.
I mean, you didn't even mention the best value I got the whole day, which was Tai Felton at the 312.
Of course. Yeah. Hey, look, I got every Texas player, I
Yeah.
think, on the offensive side mentioned outside of Gunnar Helm, who was underrated because he rolled his ankle in his first 40 times, so he's not really that slow. So
you did mention Blue too, even though you didn't draft him. All right, yeah, we'll get out of there. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll do an even longer mock next month. We'll have other shows, of course, between now and then. Be sure to check us out at fantasypros.com/rankings. Like I said, if you're starting to dive in deeper and want to see where we have these guys ranked, also be sure to check us out on Discord if you've got other questions that we maybe didn't answer today and want to ask some follow-ups directly to the guys. For Fitz and Bogman, I'm Ryan Wormley. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.